Welcome to the Explainer, Wandering Spirits. Today, we're jumping straight into a deeply unsettling yet honestly fascinating text, the mythic fable of the Lead Horizon. For this one, I want us to adopt the gaze of a deeply cynical observer. Think of yourself as a philosopher of the void. We're going to look at the absolute foundation of existence and ask a pretty terrifying question. Is life itself literally just a cosmic mistake? Is all this effort, this constant building and growing, just a messy disruption of the natural, peaceful emptiness of the universe? Look at this quote and let it sink in. What if your very breath is nothing more than a temporary theft from the void? Think about the exhausting, chaotic trials of becoming you face every single day. The stress, the ambition, the heartbreak, just the sheer biological effort of keeping yourself alive. Well, according to the fable we're exploring today, all of that striving, it might just be a vain delay of the inevitable. You're just holding on to energy stolen from the silent cosmos, and eventually, you are going to be forced to pay it back. So, to really grasp this, we need to define the central philosophical pillar of our story, the cosmic creed. This isn't a physical law like gravity. It's a universal law of cosmic negation. This creed drives our entire dark descent today by outright rejecting all of that temporary living theft we just talked about. It posits a highly controversial, cynical truth, that life is inherently deceptive, and that death, or absolute inorganic calm, is the only ultimate, honest state of being in the entire universe. Let's move into part 1, the lie of living and the burden of striving. To understand why the creed demands a return to zero, we first have to examine what the fable calls the vibrant emeralds of creation. It's a state defined entirely by painful effort and the messy, relentless friction of living. This perfectly illustrates the massive dialectic at the heart of our fable. On one side, we have the deceptive, messy chaos of life. It's the burden of striving, that constant living friction that just wears us down. On the other side, we have the opposing force, the perfect, final honesty of death. The fable argues that life is essentially a lie because it promises a permanence it can literally never deliver. It's just a chaotic interruption of the eternal silence, the infinite zero, which is ultimately the only real truth. Which brings us to part 2, Verdant's slow decay, from guardian to dust. So how did this dark philosophy actually take physical form? We begin our inverted hero's journey with Verdant. He was the very first dragon spirit, the guardian of the roots, who eventually grew just unspeakably weary of the painful effort required to sustain creation. What's fascinating about Verdant's timeline is how it maps his complete psychological surrender. He started out as a protector, tending the vibrant emerald of the world. But under the pulse of the great star of chaos, he just gave up. He actually aligned his soul with absolute vacancy and birthed the spirit of pure negation. He exhaled this heavy, suffocating fog of absolute zero that literally numbed the will to survive. He eagerly traded his living flesh for the void. He didn't fight death at all. He welcomed it as a mercy from the sheer exhaustion of tending to life. And Verdant's ultimate mercy, or maybe his ultimate folly, depending on how you look at it, reduced him to this: a silent, petrified ridge of oxidized lead on a perfectly flat plain. Forests turned to stone, buildings to gray dust. By fully surrendering to the void, Verdant paved the way for a landscape that, according to the creed, never lied, simply because there was nothing left alive to deceive it. Which leads to section 3, the lightning idol, the kinetic enforcer, because the void, it seems, was not finished. A passive surrender just wasn't enough to cleanse the cosmos. From Verdant's oxidized lead emerged a new, third spirit, a kinetic enforcer known as the lightning idol. Notice the violent contrast between these two approaches. Verdant surrendered to a slow decay, a suffocating fog that just gently put the world to sleep in petrified stillness. But the lightning idol? It enforced the cosmic creed through sudden, sharp, kinetic violence. Moving with the speed of lightning, it actively hunted down the hollow echoes of any spirit still desperately clinging to the burden of striving. So we enter part 4, harvesting borrowed debt and correcting the structural error. The crucial point to grasp here is that the lightning idol didn't just want the world to gently fall asleep. It viewed any remaining vitality not as a tragic struggle, but as an offensive structural error. Life was literally a glitch in the void that had to be hunted down and corrected. To correct this so-called mistake, the dragon built a highly active, predatory system to harvest what it called borrowed debt. It systematically executed these steps. First, identify the struggling wandering spirits. Second, condemn their breathing as a temporary theft. Third, negate them entirely to settle the debt. And finally, return that stolen energy back to the silence. It actively provided them with the final honesty of death. But here's where the fable introduces a seriously dark irony. In a complete inversion of natural growth, the idol grew only by negating others. As it hunted those hollow echoes and consumed the essence of failed growth, it transformed into a massive sovereign of chaotic energy. Think about that. It internalized the very living friction it sought to destroy, becoming the ultimate contradiction, a massive, living, kinetic force entirely dedicated to enforcing the inanimate.
Let's wrap up with Section 5, the honest horizon, the infinite zero. Having successfully hunted down and corrected the cosmic mistake of vitality, the sovereign established itself as the absolute ruler of a perfectly flat plane of gray dust. During its long, dark reign, the sovereign maintained a posture of profound, cynical detachment. It watched over the lead horizon, openly mocking any pitiful attempt at expression, creation, or growth. To the sovereign, attempting to build anything in this universe is just a wasted effort. It's a meaningless, arrogant delay of the everlasting quiet that is guaranteed to come for absolutely everything eventually. Psychologically speaking, the sovereign fulfilled the Thanatos drive on a universal scale. The Thanatos drive is that theoretical, fundamental urge toward death, self-destruction, and the inevitable return to an inorganic calm. The dragon ensured this drive was completely fulfilled. It guaranteed that no spark of hope, no warmth, and no chaotic trials of becoming could ever again be stolen from the infinite zero. And so it became the sole witness to the lead horizon. This is a landscape stripped entirely of the illusions of hope, progress, and vitality. It's an incredibly bleak thought, but within the logic of our fable, it is the only landscape that never lied. Why? Simply because nothing lived within it to deceive it. It achieved truth through absolute absence.
And this brings us to the ultimate synthesis of our explainer today. We usually think of life as a gift and death as an intruder, right? But the parable of the threefold silence flips the script completely. The deceptive host is life itself, our breath, our chaotic trials, our exhausting living friction. The truly honest guest of the story isn't a person or a spirit at all. The honest guest is the silence. It's the inorganic calm that remains when the messy, arrogant world is finally corrected into a perfect, undisturbed quiet. As we conclude our descent into the void, I'll leave you with this final, incredibly cynical provocation. As you close this explainer and return to your own exhausting trials of becoming, to your emails, your ambitions, your relationships, ask yourself, is your daily striving actually building something eternal? Or is it merely a vain, temporary delay of the inevitable silence? Something to really ponder, wandering spirits. Until next time, keep exploring the concepts that challenge everything you know.